Hey there! Thank you so much for coming back for yet another video in my Countdown to Halloween series sponsored by Deadly Sins Cosmetics. We are so close to Halloween, which means we are nearing the end of this series. Continuing with the sin of pride this week, I will be creating the Prince of Hell associated with that sin, which is Lucifer. Quite the controversial character at that. And you're not just getting one look today. Oh no. We're bringing you a 2-in-1. You're gonna get to see before the fall and after. The first part of this makeup is gonna be pretty straightforward. So while we get started, let's take some time to discuss the history of Lucifer. So jumping in, this is something that has always fascinated me. I've done tons of research on this and continue to learn new things as we explore sort of the Judeo-Christian mythology around Lucifer and angels and all of that. So I'm excited to share it with you. For most of this series, I've referenced Bishop and theologian Peter Binsfield, who is noted for his studies of witchcraft, sorcery, and demonology, but he published a highly influential revision of the classification for demons. In this, he named the 7 princes of hell, each one associated with one of the cardinal sins, which is what has inspired my creations for this series. According to Binsfield, the prince associated with superbia or pride is Lucifer. Now, when most people hear the word Lucifer, they associate that with the devil or Satan. But this understanding in Judeo-Christian religions is mixed with so many other cultural assumptions that it seems some things maybe got lost in translation. For example, the word Lucifer is actually the Latin word for light bringer or morning star, usually describing the planet Venus. This can be seen in Isaiah 14:12 in the Bible describing the fall of the king of Babylon. That's gossip. This comparison is likely used because of the celestial movement of Venus, which shines brightly and looks like it falls down from the sky. Many cultures actually mention Venus or Lucifer as a light-bringing celestial being, often as the son of the dawn. Now, this understanding is clarified by the Hebrew translation of the same passages where Hillel ben Shachar is the title of that planet, which means shining one, son of the morning star. That sounds like a pretty nice title, right? In fact, moving back to the Latin translation, the word Lucifer is used in the Bible on 4 other occasions describing the light or the dawn, even describing Jesus Christ in the book of Revelation and in the Easter Exultant. And 2 bishops also share that name, Saint Lucifer of Cagliari and Lucifer of Siena. So, when did things take a turn for this word? Well, we previously discussed the use of the word Lucifer in Isaiah. Later Christian writers interpreted the king of Babylon mentioned in that passage not just as a human, but as the devil. So the metaphor about the morning star falling became capitalized as his name, Lucifer. And that seemed to make sense of a later passage in Luke 10:18 in which Jesus says he saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And because of that, those 2 passages were connected. And now Lucifer, the name, is later used and associated with Satan. I'll talk more about Satan next week, but now that we understand the historical connection between those 2 names, there are some other points to this story we need to consider. Many are familiar with the story of the Garden of Eden and the snake that tempted Eve. The translation for snake or serpent in the early text of the Bible is seraph, or the plural seraphim. Hold on, isn't that also the name given to the highest order of angelic beings seated at the throne of God? Was God surrounded by snakes, according to that Aramaic translation? Maybe so. The seraphim in the book of Isaiah are described as 6-winged creatures with a passion for doing the work of God. In addition to meaning serpent, a secondary translation of the word means the burning one, which could have represented their connection to the sunrise. Perhaps they had flaming wings, or maybe it was a metaphor for the burning sensation you get when you get bitten by a snake. Who knows? For angels, these sound pretty intimidating, but if you consider the accounts of human beings meeting angelic beings, they're always frightened and alarmed, and understandably so at that. So in this discussion, let's say Lucifer is a name, not just an adjective, and that seraph Lucifer was seated at the throne of God, who grew too proud and was cast down to earth for trying to rule. Or maybe we just misunderstood that passage, that the word seraph didn't mean Eve saw a snake, but instead meant Eve saw an angelic being who was the one who convinced her that humans could have the same knowledge and power as God. Neither of these sounds more impossible than the other. And isn't it interesting that the symbol for the planet Venus, the morning star, is the same symbol we use to represent womanhood? Woman who was blamed for the original sin? Is it possible this came from a connection with Lucifer? All this considered, there's still so much debate as to whether Lucifer is an actual being, or a name, or a title, or is it just an adjective for lightbringer? And if so, is connecting the name Lucifer to the name Satan accurate? Check back next week for part 2 of that conversation. But for right now, enjoy this angelic form of Lucifer. For the next half of this makeup tutorial, we are doing the fallen angel. There were several angels thrown from heaven, and on the way I imagine they got burned. So we're gonna singe this makeup. Using a simple out-of-kit technique known as stretch and stipple, I'm using latex buildup on my skin and stretching and moving it into place, creating folds and wrinkles to simulate burned tissue. To take away some of the tack, I'm dusting RCMA translucent powder all over this latex. Using water-activated paints, I'm going to start introducing some color into this makeup. I'm dipping back into my Book of Sins palette and using the warmer red and crimson tones, I'm adding some inflammation and irritation to this burned skin. Taking a little bit of Crimson Cream from my Master Brew's effects wheel by Ben Nye, I'm tapping that on to add a little bit more depth and color into the face. Now I'm going to use some black body paint and stipple on some burned, singed, extreme areas. As much as I hate the latex, I'm going to do like another 2 layers over the top of this to add back in some of that shine and to be able to really press some of these things together. Using a little bit of black eyeshadow, I'm adding some details that start to hint at a more serpentine look. I want to start to introduce this definition of Seraphim as the serpent. Alright, the halo's fallen off, but I think it's time to pop in my contacts and get these wings on.